Welcome to Get Your Mojo Back. We're talking about creating a life that you love after divorce. I am your host, Alana Parkinson, and I am joined by the incredible Veronica Archer today. Thank you so much for being with us, Veronica.
It's my pleasure, Alana. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure to have you here. So, can you tell us a bit about who you are, what you do, what makes you tick?
Yes, what makes me tick? Those are maybe like all different questions.
I know, right?
I'll give the nutshell for people watching and listening as far as kind of what I do. And I think we're going to get into what makes me tick a little bit as we talk. So I am an intuitive channel and transformation coach, and I work with cycle breakers and legacy makers to break painful patterns, things that are just keep coming up in your life and you can't get away from. And also transgenerational trauma, so that you can find fulfillment ultimately, peace, joy, fulfillment in your relationships and also in your business. And to do that while you're living authentically. So that's really important to me.
Amazing. Yes, it absolutely is. And all of those things combine to give you that incredible life that we all want, right? That we're all looking for, and that can sometimes feel so elusive, right? Like we're in these patterns and it's like, I can see it. I can see what I want. And yet I keep circling through this and it's like right there. I just got to get out of this loop here.
Yeah.
So,
Getting out of the loop. Yeah. The
yes.
cycle breakers,
Yeah.
break that freaking loop.
So as we were talking about getting your mojo back, can you share what having your mojo means to you?
Having my mojo means to me. For me, it's about living. This may sound kind of grand, I think, but it's about living a life where that feels ease and flow and fulfilled. So I don't necessarily think of words like happy or all those things because those are emotions that fluctuate. But having my mojo feels like fulfilled and also moving moving forward with my life purpose. Like
Mhm.
that's really, a part of that. Like if I'm stagnant, then I don't have my mojo. So if I'm moving forward in my purpose, then that's me and my mojo.
For sure. And so this is a good segue into you getting into this work and your own story of getting your mojo back. Can you share a bit about that?
Yes. I'll try to keep it concise. Um, I say that because there are actually multiple stages of getting your mojo back. And
Mhm.
in fact, I didn't share this with you, Alana, but I'm actually in my third stage of getting my mojo back. So we can talk about that maybe, but I'll share my original kind of process. So I was married for 16 years. I have three boys that are now late teens and young adults.
Mhm.
And it was not a happy, joyful marriage. And so I left my marriage after 16 years. I found out after I left that he displays all the characteristics of narcissistic personality disorder.
Mhm.
That term is overused, but it's important because it was a big part of my journey and continues to be 7 years later. And it was when I understood narcissism and gaslighting and quite frankly, like the psychological abuse and manipulation I had experienced, which I didn't know I was experiencing when it was happening. When I discovered that, it like kicked me into my healing journey and understanding everything and understanding my childhood and what brought me to this and all these things. And I think some people at that point in time, maybe 2 years after my divorce, saw me as having my mojo back because I built a whole new community of friends. I rediscovered my hobbies. I just started dating. I was just like brimming with energy
Mhm.
and enthusiasm for life. And just I remember my son, my 15-year-old son, one day looking at me, and I lost a ton of weight, all this stuff. And he goes, "Mom, you're doing what everybody wants to have." And it blew me away when he said that. And then I was dating and I was in a relationship with somebody who I very much fell in love with. It was a short relationship, but still intense for me emotionally. And when it ended, it completely broke my heart.
Mhm.
And more so than anything had done in up to that point in my life. And I was like, hey, why is my heart broken so deeply over a short relationship? And how the fuck is this happening again? Like, I thought I had my mojo back.
Mhm, mhm.
I thought this was it. I was living the life, had a great relationship, lots of, fun and friends. And that kind of broke me down. And that breakdown kicked me into the healing that I discovered that brought me to the work I do now. And it completely changed my life. And now I'm here looking back and I can see the stages. And I'm like, oh, I thought I had my mojo back, but that was just like the icing on the cake. Now, like, I'm at this much deeper level where I know it will always like be with me because I've accessed that deeper layer. So that
Mhm.
was a really long answer to your question, but
No, and as we were talking about at the beginning, I love to share that. I love that you shared that because again, and I say this again, and I say this every time everybody shares their story, but it's really important that for people that are in that space, right? They're in that space, they feel completely broken. They feel like this is it. There's nothing after this. And that then you can see that there's so much beauty that grows from that brokenness, that feeling of being broken. Really, it's just breaking down that structure that wasn't working for you anymore. That's that broken feeling. And that's where
exactly.
that instability and that fear and that uncertainty comes from because everything that you had built that wasn't working for you is now broken, right? But that gives you this space to rebuild. And not everybody gets that blessing. And I know it doesn't feel like a blessing when you're in it, but some people try to create that change and they can't, right? They can't. Like we were talking about this, like these cycle breakers and all this stuff, right? It's harder to do that when you have to break it down first and then rebuild it. So that hard work has been done for you and now you get to rebuild. Now you're in this place of being open and ready to receive. You're in more of this state of like, I don't know what's coming, right? And so you're able to receive these gifts, these synchronicities, these different things that are coming at you to help you on your journey. So thank you so much
Yeah,
for sharing
you're
that.
welcome. And Alana, I just wanted to highlight the things that you just said because I love what you said about how you're breaking down a structure that doesn't work anymore. And so I just want to like for those of you listening, if you're someone who's like in that space of like just being broken down, there's two things I really want to share. Is one is that you do not need to be fixed. You are not broken. And that's something that's really important to me because I see that so much in lots of spaces, but in the healing space too, of what can I do to fix this?
Mhm.
And just know that as Alana just said, this is a gift. And I know it doesn't feel like it when you're in it, but to just like honor your grief and like honor your pain and recognize that you're going through something really difficult and know that you can get to the other side. I didn't say will, because it is possible to get stuck in the pain,
Mhm.
but if you're really intentional, you can get to the other side, and the other side is so beautiful. There is somewhere else that you are meant to be. And that's why your relationship is breaking you down or you feel broken down, is because there's somewhere else that you're meant to be. So just keep focused on that and hang on, because you will get to the other side and it's worth it.
It is. And then from there, you get to the other side and then when you bump up against your next thing because there's more, right? There's always more, as you said, right? You're in your third
I'm
getting
in
your
my
mojo
third
back,
one,
right?
y'all.
I am also in my third getting my mojo back. So there are multiple stages, but you gain confidence in yourself and even when you're in that space of like how am I here, how the fuck did this happen
Oh
again,
my.
right? That you're like, okay, but I've done this. Like I've been through this before. So I know that I can do this. And I know as much as I don't want to do this right now because there is resistance and I still go through that. I'm like, no, I don't want to do that. I want to stay in this, and you get all into your 2-year-old temper tantrum, right? And then you're like, no, I'm going to get into my alignment. I'm going to get into my work. I'm going to do the things that I need to do. And then as soon as you make that decision, right, then you can start to feel that shift. You can start to feel that change. You can start to feel your path forward and through that, but you gain this confidence every time you go through this. And so on the other side of this is like this most amazing expansion. With that is this most incredible confidence in yourself and your ability to do this. And that everybody has their own things that are going to light them up, that are going to help them move through this, but there are very specific things that you can do to help you move through this. This doesn't have to be this like, okay, well, it sounds great, but I have no idea how to get there, right? Like, how do I get through this? So,
Yeah, those are really good points. For anyone who's like, oh my God, y'all are in your third breakdown. I don't want to go through that.
Yeah.
What you said is so important. Like it's okay. Like right now, I'm going through some pretty major stuff, and I'm sharing it in a podcast so that people know what it's like to like be in this place and be broken down again.
Mhm.
Um, but you're so right. Like all the tools I learned through the other breakdowns, so to speak, breakup parts. I'm here and I'm just like riding it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I see what's happening. I got my tools. I'm reaching out to people who I know can support me, and I'm just gonna like, I mean, coast is maybe too gentle of a word, but I'm going to coast to the other side. So yeah, they're building blocks, and getting the tools to get you through that is so critical.
Mhm.
Now in the space where I'm in now, I reach out to, like I just said, to people who I'm like, okay, I see that I'm in it. Send me a boat and tug me along.
Yeah, for sure. And
You
there's
got to
that
reach
too,
out and get help.
is I think that's a big part of it. And I know from my journey was being able to ask for help. Like that was a huge step for me. And I think a lot of I don't know so much about men. I think so as well. Like I think we have it ingrained in ourselves from a very young age to not ask for help, to show that we're strong, to show that we're independent, to show that we're right. And then we're in this space where like outwardly we have like this armor on and inwardly we're crumbling, right?
That's
And
right.
so to be
Yeah.
able to get to that place where we're vulnerable and saying, you know what, I do need help and I need to reach out and I need to know that even though I'm asking for something and I can't necessarily reciprocate something in return right now, that it's okay. It's okay to take right now and receive. And then when I'm in this space of being stronger, that I can then begin to give back because you will.
Yeah.
And
Being able to receive is a big part of it. And so many people struggle with receiving and then they can't get the help that they need.
yeah. And that I know for me, when I went through a healing journey and in that space, like for a long time, I was like, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then got to the place where I was like, okay, I need some help. And I remember hearing it was like, well, part of the healing journey is helping others. And I was like, I have no desire to help others. Like there must be something wrong with me. And it was that I didn't have the energy to help others, right? I needed to take care of myself first. And I think this is a really important point as well, is that when you're in these spaces, that you do put yourself as a priority, right? If you have kids, it can be tricky because you want to make sure that they're okay as well, but you need to fill yourself up first. You really truly need to take care of yourself first. And then you have that space, you have that energy, you have that centeredness, right? You don't want to help your kids from this anxious, unsettled, unstable energy, right? You want to be there in your the most aligned, strongest state that you can be in to support them as well. So again, that's also in a perfect world, and sometimes we don't always get to do that. But when we can keep that in our focus, that we can create more and more stability in ourselves, and then be able to share that with other people as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so today we're going to talk about discovering your purpose. And this
Woo!
is a big one. This is a big one. This is one that comes up quite a bit. And especially as you go through divorce, as you go through this breaking down, and you start to realize that your relationship is no longer working and maybe other aspects of your life aren't working either, and you very much come to this place of who am I, like who have I become, who am I stepping into, where am I going, what am I going to do, especially if stepping from taking care of children at home and now you're like, okay, it's time to transition back into a career, or what am I going to do with my free time, that kind of thing. So as you're going through this, how do we begin to step into this? How do we get from that place of being like, I have no idea who I am, I've just lost everything that I thought was who I am, to really truly finding that purpose, that calling, that, as you were talking about being from that broken state to there's somewhere else that is calling you.
Yeah, thank you for that. So discovering your purpose and how do you get from that place of not even knowing who you are to discovering your purpose? First, I'll say that I think it's actually a pretty natural progression. And so if you're somebody who's like, "Oh, I don't know my purpose in life," I invite you to just allow yourself to be really present in what you're experiencing right now and know that you will get to that. So supporting people and uncovering their kind of soul purpose in life, SOUL, not their only purpose, but their soul aligned with their soul purpose, is one of the things I love doing. And for me, the way that transpired, one, it's part of my innate makeup that I have this skill set and intuitive skill set and in real life skill set to support people with that. And also, according to my fingerprints, apparently that's part of what I'm here to do, is to help people find their purpose. So, but the way that I came to that was that as I was working with clients, so I was working with people who are coming out of primarily narcissistic relationships and helping them, supporting them in healing all the different things that need to be healed when you come out of that kind of experience. And part of that healing process is you start discovering who you are, and these outer, I kind of see people as having like, you have like this core self of who you are, and then you have all this layers of crap, conditioning, but just crap that's been piled on top of it, and your core self is hidden. And what the healing process really is discovering the crap and getting rid of it with a big old shovel. And then when you get to your core self, then your purpose becomes clear. And so it became very natural that people went through their healing process and then they were like, now what? And so I was like, yeah, now what? And so then we worked on uncovering their purpose, and then they moved into living their purpose, which of course is when like you feel like you really have your mojo. You're like, hell yeah, I am living my purpose. Everything is good, right? So I think the question you asked was how to get there, right?
Well, and yeah, what is that transition like? Because yeah, you go from this broken, like everything feels like it's fallen apart, to then being in a
Yeah.
situation where you're like, this is what I do now, and this is who I help, and this is right. And I know I
Yeah.
went through that process too. And so when you're in it, you're like, I need to find it right now. Right now.
Yes.
What is
Yeah.
it right now? Tell me right now, you know?
So I know this is hard, but if there's one thing you can walk away with, you listening to us here, is like letting go of the right now,
Mm,
because it will reveal itself as you go through the process. So I know, Alana, you and I are both quantum healers. And so I kind of want to speak to that a little bit, because how do you get there?
yeah.
Really the core to getting there, and to getting there faster, is to learn how to tune in to that core self that I was just talking about. And I've now call myself a channel because so many of my clients call me that.
Mhm.
I don't really love labeling all the different gifts that we have. Um, but using intuition, and Alana, I know you also use, as a quantum healer, you just naturally use intuition as part of your work. That's just what it's all about. And some people are kind of like, find it, it's like mystical or something like that. We all have these gifts within ourselves, and they might be they're different for each of us. I mean, there's overlap, but the way that I listen to my intuition may be different than the way you, Alana, or you listening to this. So the key is to learn how to tune into your core self. And as you do that, uncovering your purpose. I kind of lost my way a little bit.
No, that's
Okay.
okay, but go with it because I think this is
Yeah, as
really
you
important as well.
awesome. As you tune into your core self, it'll be easier for you to identify what is the crap. Because this sounds a little strange, but you'll start noticing kind of, I feel things in energy. So I start knowing what my core self feels like. And then when there's something that's vibrating at a different frequency, I'm like, that doesn't feel right. I don't know why. So I think when we're doing healing work, a lot of times there's a lot of why when we're doing our own healing work for ourselves. Like, why did my marriage end? Why did my ex treat me this way? Why am I going through this? And sometimes it's a like, little kid tantrum why, like just angry
Mhm,
at the universe.
mhm,
But sometimes it's like we genuinely want to know, like,
mhm.
why did you cheat on me? Or why did you whatever, to our exes, right? And ultimately the why is not what, understanding the why of the 3D, what happened to you, is not going to get you to healing. And what's going to get you to closure and get you to healing is understanding what is real present for you. And it goes back to what you said earlier, Alana, about focusing on yourself. It is so hard to do, and it is the number one most important thing that you can do. And it's both in the 3D, like I need to make sure I'm eating correctly. I need to make sure I'm not giving all my time away, all those kinds of things. But also, if you can tune into your core self and put the focus on your core self, the why of all the pain that you've experienced starts to fade away, and you start being able to understand your core purpose. It just starts bubbling up from that inner knowing that you have.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It does. It's something that and if you've heard me talk, I'm sure you've heard me say this before, but when I went through my own healing journey, I came from mechanical engineering. I came from very much the 3D world, touch, taste, sound, like anything else is nonsense.
That's why we get along. I 20 years as a biologist.
There you
I'm
go. So
all
yeah,
about science and facts and
yes.
studies and data.
Exactly, right? And then you come into this world and it's like, okay, what? What are you talking about?
Exactly. Wait,
Like,
what?
what? This doesn't make any sense. This is crazy. Like, I truly would not have been able to have a conversation with me today the way that I was 15 years ago. Like, could
100%.
not. I would have been like, she is insane. Like, she has
What are you
completely lost her
talking
mind.
about?
But it's so if you're in that space where you're like, what? I don't feel that. I don't get that. I don't understand that. The more that you do this work, you will feel that. You will like
It's
I
practice.
did not, I couldn't even feel my emotions. Like I mean, I was numb, 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 numb. And now I can feel it. I can feel it in my body. I can tap in and I can be like, there's the block. Yeah, that I can feel that. I can feel it shift. I can, you can really start tapping into these energies when you do this work. Now, it's like going to the gym. It's like riding a bike. Like you need to learn how to do it. And as you said too, right? Like we all have our own gifts. Like you can think of it, even if we were all painters, right? And we all learned how to paint and we all had the same teacher that taught us how to paint. Our paintings would not look the same, right? Like we would all have different paintings. So we all have these different gifts and some of us paint, some of us draw, some of us build Legos, whatever that is. We all have these different ways of expressing and connecting into these different energies. And so as you go through this, even if you're learning from somebody who has a certain way of doing things and you learn from that way of doing things, that your way is going to start to come through. And we actually talked about this
Yeah,
at the beginning in our own practices, that the way that we work with our clients has evolved immensely as we've gone through this practice.
absolutely.
So it's important. I don't know even know where I got onto this, but it's really important that you trust that even if you can't feel it right now, that this is something that will evolve. And as you said, right, your purpose will come from that. And it may be
Yeah.
working with this and it may be something else, but it's all tapped into that, who you are and allowing
Yeah,
that
and Alana, I want to highlight a couple of things you said. So it will evolve if you tap into it and if you're consistent with it. And you said something that was so important, which is that you were numb, as was I, and probably everybody listening, or vast majority of people listening, have experienced this. Because when you are going, especially I'm not sure if people here are divorcing. There's all kinds of different reasons to divorce and separate from relationships, and some are more challenging than others. I've worked with people who were in very high conflict marriages, I guess we'll put it that way, emotionally abusive, psychologically abusive, those kinds of things. So lots of trauma. And
Mhm.
I use the air quotes only because the vast majority of my clients don't connect with the word trauma.
Yeah.
So you might be like, I didn't experience trauma. I didn't think I experienced trauma. If someone told me I was in an abusive relationship, I'd be like, you're crazy. So whatever word you want to use, the point I want to make is the numbness. Disconnecting from your body is a defense mechanism. So it's really normal to, and it's part of how we're built as humans, to disconnect from our emotions and our bodies when we're experiencing painful things, because you're like, I don't want to experience that, so I'm going to cut it off.
Mhm.
So one of the first ways to connect with all these things we've been talking about, connecting with your core self, your purpose, being free from the pain of your past, is to reconnect with your body and your emotions. And it's actually the connection with your body that will allow you to connect with your core self, with your intuition, with your purpose. And it's really important that if you are someone who's disconnected, that you get help with that,
Mhm.
because you can re-traumatize yourself if you go too quickly. And all of a sudden, all these emotions start coming up, and you don't have the container within yourself to be able to manage it. And that's also why, by the way, I believe that I am now going through this third stage of evolution, we'll call it, because the understandings that are coming up for me are super, super deep, super, super painful. And I could not have held them 2 years, even 2 years ago, much less 7 years ago or 10 years ago. And so now my container is at a place where I'm able to handle that. And so new things come up, which means I get to evolve to new layers of mojo. So that's fun. I'm looking forward to that part of this process.
I know, right?
But if you're like what Alana was just talking about, feeling like you don't know how to do this, connecting with your core self, um, find someone to support you in reconnecting your body and your emotions and your energy body, which is probably a whole nother conversation. But all of those three aspects together need to be connected in order for you to be able to have that life of ease that I was talking about at the beginning.
For sure. And it's, as you're going through these different layers of healing, that it is really important that you get that support, that you get that. I talk about this a lot as well, but it's so important that you have that external perspective. And you may be fortunate enough that that is your mother or your sister. It's a lot easier when it's not somebody that has that close relationship with you, because there can be triggers tied in with that. So if it's somebody that's really in a neutral position, but that they can help guide you through this process. They can help shine the light on these different layers. But the other thing that you talked about that I think is really important is that when you have these tools, when you begin to work with this energy, when you begin to tap in, that what comes up is going to be what you're ready to work through. It's sometimes it
100%.
may feel overwhelming, but it's never going to be more than what you can handle. It's never going to be more than what you can handle. And so when you work with somebody, when you work in that space of the quantum field, when you work through that space of tapping into this energy, it's going to support you to open up. Not that it's easy. Sometimes it can be very simple. Like it can be a simple process, right? It's not necessarily going to be easy, but the more that you do it, it's something that becomes more and more natural for you, right? It's like, again, like going to the gym for the first time or riding. You're not like, wow, that was super easy, right? But it's something that becomes more easy, and it's something that you can begin to work through and begin to understand what happens within you as you're going through that process. And so many people, and you may be in that space, is, well, I've already worked on that. I've already worked on that. I've already cleared that. It's not there
That's
anymore.
the number one thing I hear from people.
Yeah, it's like, well, I've already worked on that, so there's nothing more there. And it's like, oh my goodness, no, there's things that I've worked on so many different layers, and each time it's like, oh, there it is. And exactly as you say, it's at this even deeper layer. And it's not to say that you're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be free of this. It's just that you go through these phases of, it's like breathing, right? You go through these phases of expansion, and then you go through these phases of contraction. And so you go through these phases where you're like, here I am, I've made it through the other side, right? And it feels amazing. And then it's like, okay, now it's time to come back and do some more growth. And then it's out again. As you get into that rhythm of it, it becomes more joyful. It becomes more of an adventure rather than this like, oh my God, I don't want to go through this again. Don't want to go through this
Yeah, it
again.
is an adventure. Yeah, it's fun, and it can be fun, and it can feel really magical. Like one thing that I've experienced recently is that life feels really magical now. Like
Mhm.
just things like, because everything that comes into my life is, there's just like I need something and it comes into my life, and like that's people call it manifesting. I don't like that word, but it's working in the field. It's working in the quantum.
It is.
Elena, if we have time, I could offer just very briefly, we can practice connecting with your core self.
Let's do
Do you want
that.
to do that?
Yes, please.
Okay. So if you are driving, I do not do this while you're driving. So either pull over or come back and listen to this part later. And if you are multitasking, I invite you to just put down whatever it is that you are currently multitasking. We're just going to take a couple of minutes here to connect. And I just also invite you to allow whatever you experience to be exactly perfect for you. So you may feel nothing, you may feel something amazing, and you may feel something in between. And as Alana said a moment ago, whatever comes up for you is what you need right now. So if you're watching, you probably see I have my eyes closed. You can do this with your eyes open or closed. I tend to close my eyes because it drops me into the field. So we're just going to start by connecting with this present moment. So just allow yourself to become really aware of this moment so that you are fully present. You may notice sounds. You may notice thoughts going across your brain. You may feel sensations in your body, your feet on the floor, your hips on a chair. You may feel the temperature of the room you're in. And you're not trying to manage anything. You're simply noticing. You're becoming the observer of this moment. So nothing is distracting. Everything is just part of this moment. And as you become deeply aware of this moment, you start noticing that you are breathing. You're noticing what it feels like as your belly expands and air goes into your lungs, and what it feels like as you exhale. And you're not trying to manage your breath. You're just noticing that you are breathing. And as you have that observation, your breath may naturally slow down and get deeper. So just take a breath or two, noticing your breath. And now allow your attention to drop into your body, or as low as your attention may go. If you're somebody who experiences disassociation, your attention may be up in your head, up in your emotions. If you're somebody who's deeply connected with your body, your attention may be lower. If you experience energy, dropping your attention into your body may actually feel like dropping into the center of your energy body. Any of these experiences are completely valid. Just allow your attention to drop into your body as low as that is for you. Now take a moment to look around with your internal eye. Just look around this space or feel around if you're not visual. And become aware of a place that just feels like the center of this space that your awareness is occupying. And just take a moment to connect with the center of this space that you're occupying. And allow your attention to be in that center. So I invite you to, at another time, listen to this and hold your attention on that center for between 2 and 5 minutes. And you may notice that center changes and moves to different spots, and that's perfectly fine. Just each day, connect with that center and stay there for 2 to 5 minutes. You can set your timer. So this allows you to start feeling into what your center feels like. For now, we're going to take a moment to ground so we don't leave you floating around. So allow your attention now to move to, hold on, something else is asking to come up. When you spend these 2 to 5 minutes connected with your center, allow yourself to experience the world around you from this center. This may sound strange, but we are used to experiencing things from our brain. Our brain is actually only one organ of many organs and cells within our body. We give it too much importance. You are able to experience the world from this center that you just connected with. So when you spend 2 to 5 minutes connected with that center, you can do it with your eyes open and practice experiencing all your 5, 6, 7 sensations from the center rather than from your brain. So for now, go ahead and bring your attention to the bottom of your spine, your root. Inhale deeply into that space. Hold at the top of your breath and release. You always want to do that whenever you connect with yourself to make sure you ground yourself back into your body. Bring your attention to your body, noticing how it feels connected to the chair, connected to the floor. Notice the temperature in the room that you're in. Allow all your senses to be fully engaged so you're now fully present in your body.
That was incredible. And this is what I'm talking about, where it can be very simple, right? Like these processes can be very simple. And when we're not used to it, it can be difficult. It can be difficult to
Yes.
be in that space. But as you were talking, I mean, I was totally there in my body. And it's like this, when you're in that space, there's no anxiety, there's no worry, because you're in the present, right? That stuff comes from thinking about the future, from worrying about the past, from all of these different things. When you're in that present space, you're there and you're in you. But what was coming is that it's like it's like when you go to the gym. For some reason this keeps coming up, but it's like when you go to the gym, if you're just working one muscle, right? Then you're going to have this, like, you're working your bicep. You got like this wicked awesome bicep, right? And the rest of your body is like, right? And just like a, wet spaghetti, right? And that's kind of how we've been raised. That's culturally how we've been raised, is that's our brain, right? We've been taught to exercise the brain and exercise the brain and exercise the brain, and the rest of it has just been kind of like left loosey goosey to do whatever it does, right? So as you're doing just even this process of coming into the body and being in the body, you're allowing those senses, those other senses, those other experiences, that intuition, all of that thing to start. Oh, oh, I get to be a part of this too. All right, right. And so you really get to start to develop you as an entire being, and not just this like beefy bicep
Yes,
that
the
you're.
practice of presence is huge, and I believe the key to, I call this the practice of presence, the key to massive shifts in healing and finding your purpose, connecting with your intuitive gifts. And so doing this like 2 to 5 minutes a day, I mean, literally, it will change your life, and it doesn't have to be, this big heavy work. In fact, I wanted to ask you really quick, Alana, where did you feel your core self?
So I was right when I was going in. What I felt actually was that I kind of stopped in between my third chakra and my second chakra. So like my solar plexus and like just below my navel, I was in that space. And I felt like, okay, I actually need to open that energy up. Like I was kind of blocked from my second chakra downward. And then as we were sitting in that space, I could feel that opening. And then my center stayed more or less in that same space, but I could feel that it was complete. Like that I was fully open rather than it just kind of
Yeah,
stuck there.
cool. I asked you that because I just want to share. So I do this process in one of my groups, and I asked the group where they felt their center. And so I just want to share some of the answers. So there was a guy who felt it in his pinky.
Hmm.
I feel it in my sacral, like my womb space.
Hmm.
Some people have felt it in the space around, like outside of themselves, in the air around their head.
Hmm.
And so I just wanted to share that to release the expectation for everyone listening of what it's supposed to feel like, because it's going to feel different for each person. And also, by the way, it'll change. So
Mhm.
when I first started it, for me, it was outside of myself because I probably was disassociated, although I didn't recognize that that's what was happening. So it was sort of around my head. And then it moved into my heart and it was there for a long time. And then it moved into my sacral. And now there's actually like a spot that's even deeper than my sacral that I can't explain because it's an
Mhm.
energetic spot. It's not actually a geographic spot. So it moves. So wherever you feel it, or like you said earlier, if you don't feel it at all, that's exactly correct. Because a lot of times people are like, is this right? Am I doing it right? Yes.
Yes.
Even without you telling me what you're doing, you are doing it right. So I
Yeah.
just believe that.
No, and it's an amazing practice because you do get to know yourself and you can start to feel it shift and you can feel it shift as you go through challenges, right? That it may be like something that's deeply centered and rooted and then it may get like a little jarred and it's like, okay, yeah, no, I can feel that I'm not quite in my center right now, that I've been moved around. And then you do that work and it gets even more deeply seated. So it's an amazing process and it's an amazing way to check in with where you're at and where your energy is at and get to know yourself, like really get to know yourself because you're so much more than just your body. You're so much more than just,
Yeah.
you know, all these programs
That
that
was a question you asked me earlier of how do you start getting to know yourself, I think, to get to your purpose. And this practice right here is the first and foundational step to doing that.
thank you so much for sharing it. It was
You're
again
welcome.
simple and yet incredibly profound. So, and this is something that we can do exactly every single day. So there you go.
Yeah, my
Your
pleasure.
incredible gift. And on top of that, you have another gift for us. We were talking about this a bit
Oh,
at the beginning.
yes. So
Can you share?
yeah, so if you're interested in that, something I mentioned earlier as we were talking was connecting with your energy body and your emotions and connecting all that together. So I have a free gift where I describe the 7 layers of energy, which includes your body, by the way. It's one of the layers, so that you can have an understanding of what that means. And then there's a few video clips of different practices to learn how to connect with and manage your energy. So
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you. This
yeah,
is
you're
going to help. I
welcome.
mean, again, you have your daily practice here that Veronica's just shared with you. And then on top of that, you're going to have this where you can develop it even more deeply and getting to know your entire being, not just
Yeah.
this, you know, our bodies and whatnot. So thank you so much for that. Thank you so much for being here, Veronica. I so appreciate this. I loved talking to you. I could talk to you for hours, I'm sure, no problem. Days,
Thank you
months.
so much. It was my absolute pleasure to be here. And for everyone listening, I just want to say, you will get through this. Get help from whomever can support you in your journey. And when you discover your soul purpose and are living in full alignment with that, you will have your mojo back and you will feel life just feels fulfilled and at ease. So it's possible to get there.
And how can people, if they want to get in touch with you, obviously through this free gift, but is there an email or is there a website
Yeah,
that they can go to?
absolutely. Absolutely. If so the free gift is a great way because then you'll get access to my email and you can just hit reply and send me a question. I do have a soul vision alignment program where we work one-on-one and I help you uncover what your purpose is if you feel like you're ready for that. There is a level of readiness of sort of doing some of this preliminary healing work. So you can reach me at veronicaarcher.com is my email, and Veronica is with a K. So Veronica at veronicaarcher.com.
And that's a really important point. As we're wrapping up, I want to wrap up, but that you'll know when you're ready. But you also need to, the more that you do that exercise, for example, you'll be able to know if there's a block that's preventing you from being ready, or if you're really just not in that space. But that will even help you get ready for this next phase of your journey. So
100%.
again, so trust in what you're getting, but if you feel like you're not ready, don't let that deter you from starting to do this work and stepping into even just this incredibly simple yet profound practice that Veronica shared with you. I know
Absolutely.
you've already left us with some parting words, but is there anything else that you want to say as we're saying goodbye today?
Hmm. Oh, I just want to send so much love because I know the pain that you're in if you're going through a divorce or breakup. Um, and yeah, just sending love and healing to you if you're in that breaking down phase and you're just needing You're just needing love.